Here we are today with Carolyn Wood, who is the Associate Vice President for Student Services with Lord Fairfax Community College. I'm excited to have her here. She's been a great supporter of Leadership Fauquier and a dear friend, and we're blessed to have her in the community. Before she joined Lord Fairfax, she was with the Howard Community College system for 10 years, and before that, she was in a lot of very interesting service-oriented positions, and so she has a lot of expertise to share with us today. So welcome, Carolyn.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
So I thought we would start. I always like to start with a story. So maybe you could share a story of when did you realize that you were interested in being of service to people?
Well, I think for me, it was really through modeled behavior. I come from a long line of public servants who have given to their communities. Both my parents are community college educators. When I was young and we would walk around town, people would stop me and say, "Are you Kathy Wood's daughter?" And I would say, "Yes." We all had curly hair. And they would say, "Your mother changed my life." She was a faculty member. My father was an administrator, and he never got stopped. Nobody ever stops administrators and say, "You changed my life." But that actually helped me realize that there's a level of institutional service. We need systems and institutions in place that serve communities, and we need individual service. So that's really what started my call to service. And I realized as I went into broadcast journalism, I was a reporter in many radio stations throughout the country, that really what I'm passionate about and my biggest call to service is if we all work together in a community to create healthy, thriving communities, everybody does better for it and everybody is better for it. So when I moved into community college education, which of course is the family business, I still brought that call to service around thriving communities. And I believe that community colleges do that as well. They are part of the foundation along with healthcare, K through 12, recreation, strong government, that are the foundations of a really strong, thriving community.
And that's why they call them community colleges, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. We serve the people that live in our community.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like to do with these interviews is get to know you more personally. And I wanted to go back to talking about the community college and how it, as an entity, serves a community. But tell me a little bit about who you serve. Who are the people or the communities that you actually serve?
We serve the whole community. So if you think about the community as a whole, we serve students who might want to get an applied degree or a quick certificate and get right back out into the workforce. We serve students who might want to get a degree and move on and get a bachelor's degree. We serve students whose English might not be their first language, or students who are seeking a GED. We also serve lifelong learners, and in turn, we serve the business and community at large because we are training their workforce. So you'll notice from community to community that community colleges look a little different because we all have programs that reflect and mirror what our communities need.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about, I'm going to bring it down a little bit smaller, and for you, what do you feel is a definition of servant leadership?
Well, I always think of servant leadership as you're looking to put people first. So I always think about, I don't think of myself as, for example, a supervisor or a manager. I'm a facilitator. So I'm helping people really recognize and build on their strengths and do their best work. So for me to be a successful servant leader, it means that the people I work with are able to have the tools and the resources and access to education and to be able to be their very best and to rely on their strengths to serve our students and our residents the best that they can.
Mm-hmm. And do you have an example of something that you do within your position now that it exemplifies that servant
leadership?
Yes.
So some of the things that I'll do, I certainly ask often what people need and advocate for folks, but I also see if they just need me to take things off of their desk. I would rather do a work that might be tedious or annoying to some if they can, just to get some capacity for them to really be able to dig into projects. So I always leave a little time to be doing things like phone calls or meeting with students on issues that might not be technically be in my job duty.
Mhm. And maybe you could just describe the people that you work with and how it's important for you to be their leader and build them.
So, well, I'm a little biased, I will admit, but I do think that community college educators are the most generous people that I have ever met in my entire life. They love people, and and it's particularly at Lord Fairfax, I think there's a spirit of generosity you don't see in all organizations, that people will go above and beyond to make sure students get what they need. And it's not just get what they need in terms of what we provide, but we'll go above and beyond, and everybody that works at LFCC will go above and beyond to help somebody if their car has broken down, if they can't afford rent, if they need counseling. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole student and making sure that all of their needs are met. And so that's where we connect in with local resources to really begin to serve the student. It's not just at our door does our service end. We know that they go home to issues with broadband or transportation or childcare or joblessness. And so we help them with everything. And that's what that generosity of spirit is seen in everyone I work with, from the person who's in the business office collecting money to our advisors, to our house cleaning staff. Everyone is generous. It's a beautiful place to work.
You can tell how excited you're getting with this, and you led me into my perfect next question. And actually, if you were to have, we've entered the world of fantasy, and if you were to be granted one wish as you cross the path of a magic fairy along the way, and it wasn't money that you were being granted, but you were going to be granted one wish, what would that be for you, the community that you serve?
Oh, so many wishes. So the community that I serve, the one wish I would have, and it's actually, I'm going to say the larger community, because I think that it would impact the micro community that I serve as well. Paul Wellstone once said, "We all do better when we all do better." Mm-hmm. So if the community at large were able to really embrace ensuring that we are all marching and working towards every single person in this community thriving and doing well, we would all be better for it. And that really, I think, particularly with our students who are often at the beginning of their journey to the workforce, would really benefit from, because there would be things in place that would support them in their journey. And so then when they're out and working and thriving, they too could then pay it forward.
Mm-hmm. So what type of obstacle do you see then? What kind of actions could somebody take for that to happen in your eyes?
There's so many obstacles, and I always want to be positive, but there are a lot of obstacles, and it has to do around poverty. It has to do around affordable housing, transportation, broadband, and also first generation students. They don't have any experience with college, and neither do their families, so they don't have a mentor or guide. We try to give that to them, but that would be also helpful in the community. I think we have some of those things. We don't have all of those things in the community, but to really look at holistic solutions and connected systems so that everybody knows what everyone's doing and we're not duplicating services. So we're kind of all in together. I think that would be helpful. You might be able to tell I have a systems mind.
Yeah. Well, you sort of have to be that way. So do you feel that there's an unmet need that actually could be satisfied to help your students get to that space that you're looking for?
I think it's always about resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes students, even with financial aid, can't afford to go to college. And they can't afford, it's hard to go to college and work and live, have children. It's nearly impossible without resources. So it is about funding. So with our foundation, one of the projects we're working on is helping students who are just at that edge that owe just a little bit of money, trying to get them over that last bit of tuition money so that they can stay in classes. So things like that are always helpful. Also, if we could, I don't know how to solve the broadband problem. I think some of our issues are so large that it does take the whole community to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Transportation, when a student can't get access to transportation to get to school, they can't get to their classes. Well, they also might not have access to broadband. And so they're at that point reliant on rides, maybe to the library or to school sometimes. So it really, again, it goes back to some of those real systemic issues around transportation, broadband, housing.
Yeah. And those keep coming up over and over again every time we talk to anybody in a leadership capacity. No particular answers out there, except that we definitely, it's important that we start talking about it and doing something.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things so I went through leadership fall year through the 2020 class. So 2020 vision, that's what we were called. And one of the things that really struck me that I think Mary Lee McDaniel brought up, one of our supervisors, about having conversations with our representatives in Washington about broadband being a utility, being considered a utility, not being considered a luxury that we're dependent on companies to bring to us if they can make money off of it. So seeing it as electricity, as running water, as something that's required and that we have to make sure it goes everywhere. Yes. I thought that was a really interesting, one of the most important things that I've changed my perspective on is thinking about it as a utility and really having conversations about it being a utility.
Right. Yeah. And I think since that conversation a year ago, it's become obvious that it's essential, absolutely essential.
It has become abundantly clear that communities cannot exist without that infrastructure, that for economic development reasons, broadband is essential for economic development survival.
Yes, absolutely. So let's shift resources for just a moment as we get closer to finishing up. Can you think of a particular leadership attribute that you think is just essential, like it's the most important attribute for you working forward?
For me, so I've studied leadership and, been through many leadership development programs, and there are many skills I think we all need to hone and develop. But for me, it's been about authenticity. As a woman coming up through the ladder in leadership, I think that I've had to come to terms with I am who I am, and rely on those strengths, but find good people around you to make sure you're not building teams that are just like you, to make sure people have complementary skills and to be authentically who you are. Because I think that we are all, most humans are inherently good. And when we can work on our skills and be authentic, we can really stay in touch with that kind of that heart and soul purpose of why we do what we do, and to see other humans in a positive light. And so what that has meant for me is, shedding those power suits from 10 years ago, and just knowing that if I show up and be my authentic human self, I can listen better, I can not judge, I can help better. Because when I'm consumed with trying to be something that I'm not, I'm of no help to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, I couldn't have finished with a better question than that, Carolyn. Very, very, very well said. I really appreciate that. Very well said.